This is the Wonderfully Made podcast, and I'm your host, Fifi Buchanan. On this show, I share personal experiences, narrate stories I've written to reveal truths about life and the human experience. I also share lifestyle improvement tips in bite-sized episodes, so you can listen during your commute, in the office, or in the comfort of your own home. My desire is that every time you listen, you are reminded that you are wonderfully made. Hi, thank you for tapping into another episode of Wonderfully Made. And if you're enjoying the show, if you could take a quick moment to leave a review on Apple Podcasts, I'd really appreciate it. And also, just remember in the show notes, you'll find all the links you need, including how to support my brand. I have 2 books as well as a meditative exercise that you can download and listen to anytime you would like. And you'll also find links to my social media platforms so we can get connected on there as well. Okay, let's get into it. In this episode, we will be discussing confusing limiting beliefs with wisdom. So, are you aware of a concept called limiting beliefs? In my own summary, what it is when you hold certain beliefs as true, and that becomes a limitation in your life. For example, being over 40 is too late to return to college because by then you are so far removed from education and maybe you'll be too rusty. You see how there's this reasoning attached to it? It's not just that it's too late, it's because of the time that's passed and the habits and all of these things. And just so you know, I do not think it's ever too late to get an education if you want it. But that's the thing about limiting beliefs. We all have a certain amount of experience in life, and while it has taught us many valuable lessons, in other ways, things we have experienced may have made our ideas a bit too rigid. In an attempt to not experience pain, embarrassment, or loss, we sometimes intellectualize our reason for not trying certain things that we very much want to try. And that is why I titled this episode, Confusing Limiting Beliefs with Wisdom. Are there moments where we talk ourselves out of certain experiences because we think we know how it will all turn out? First, our limiting beliefs are very much a way of protecting ourselves. If you, for instance, have a job you set out to acquire, and the interview, in your estimation, is a complete disaster, that may have an effect on you. Either you will decide to improve an aspect of your interview style, or you might, unfortunately, begin to sell yourself short so that you never are met with that particular challenge again, or any challenge that you can't overcome. I remember this one time I had this super intense interview at an engineering consulting firm. It was pretty early on in my career, and it was no secret to them that I was still early into my career phase, but I was so eager to learn. I walked into this bright, airy, modern office, and the only other woman there was an admin. Most of the men were young, but older than me. They were all wearing these stylish suits. They all had German accents, very firm handshakes, pointing these things out to say, quite different from me. I instantly felt a very intense and kind of serious vibe from the office, but I felt ready. Now here's where I was taken by surprise. Instead of sitting in a room for a conversation, they sat me down and said the interview would be a challenge instead. I was given a few sheets of paper and a pen and left alone in a room for 15 to 20 minutes with one question. How do you design the GPS? Now, they know I'm a mechanical engineer, and I'm quite certain they may not have been looking for a perfect or right answer, but they were definitely trying to put me in hot water and see how I behaved. I was extremely nervous and, I tried to do my best. I tried to really show them my thought process and logic and how I would problem solve. So I didn't get the job. They seemed entirely unimpressed by me from start to finish. I really didn't even feel much of a connection with the interviewers. I walked away not only feeling unqualified for that role, I walked away feeling unqualified for any engineering role. If I could talk to my younger self, I would say that there was much left to be desired about that interview style and ability to welcome me as a potential new employee, and maybe even their screening process for the role. I would also say that not everyone and everything is a good fit, but that should not stop me from applying with excitement for any technical role that catches my eye, because there's always a chance someone will see that potential in me. I didn't have that at the time, and it took me a long time to get back to applying for roles with confidence. I sometimes went for positions far below my skill set. I didn't have the wisdom yet to see the situation as just one out of maybe 1,000 more opportunities for me. Even though I never said out loud, I am not a good fit for a technical firm, my way of moving through my career path for those next couple of years, it said it all for me. Now, were my feelings and experience valid? Of course. But is it also true that I was navigating through a limiting belief rather than an actual truth? This actually brings me to my next point, which is that sometimes our limiting beliefs are not even conscious. Our subconscious mind is so powerful that we may be letting it dictate our actions without even knowing it. I think this is why it's good to journal and sit with ourselves and have quiet time and be devoted to mindfulness as a way of life. Otherwise, we'll miss it. With the busy lives that most of us lead, it is so easy to get caught up in routines and habits that help conserve time and energy. In the long run, we can all benefit from consistently evaluating these habits. It's always good to ask, why am I doing this? Even deeper than that, why am I thinking this? It's also important to keep in mind that whatever we believe, we will always find more and more evidence to support that. I'm not sure I believe that we make things happen or cause them to happen based on our beliefs. I kind of feel like that's too simplified. And I've said it before, I feel like we sort of put that out there as conjecture, and it feels like a punishment when people just admit what they're feeling and thinking in the moment. But I do absolutely believe when we already believe something to be true, we are really good at identifying evidence that supports it. So knowing all of this is why I say sometimes we confuse limiting beliefs with wisdom. Someone might say, I could never live in New York. It's too expensive. While someone else is saying, I really want to live in New York. How much money and what moves do I need to make in order to live comfortably there? That small shift. Also, it's perfectly okay to explore what it would take to achieve a certain thing and admitting it's not a commitment you want to make. It's okay to say, I don't want to wake up at 4 a.m. for that commute, or I don't really want to do the work required to get a pet, although I love dogs. It's not that you could never or are unable, but that you know what is required of you and you are unwilling. That's okay. That's powerful. It is your choice. Is there something you really want, like your heart cannot let it go? It even sneaks into your dreams. I would encourage you to speak about it freely and in a way that does not limit your potential to get it. If there is something you have learned on the journey to get the desires of your heart, let that fuel you to get the thing that you want a different way. Don't rule out getting help from others. Many of the things we want to achieve, they cannot easily be achieved alone. They're not meant to be achieved alone. Also, don't be afraid or ashamed. The most beautiful thing about the human experience is trying again and again until we get there. It's time we stop letting failure be our stopping or breaking point. Each failure is just showing us a way that does not work, but we have absolutely not exhausted all our options. When things are challenging or require a lot of sacrifice, it's more than okay to acknowledge that. When we are tired and discouraged along the way, we are more than welcome to say so. But be open to the encouragement. Look for evidence along the way that what is for you is truly for you. And at times when believing something is possible becomes a struggle, say you want to believe. Say you do not want to lose hope. Say you still want to want what you want. Even a glimmer of hope is better than no hope at all. And I firmly believe those of us who still cling tightly to hope are the ones that make the world go round. Without hope, we're desolate. But without being realistic, we cannot properly navigate what our starting point is so that we can get to where we need to be. I personally am going to commit to not operating in fear. I am committed to living outside of my comfort zone, yet I also acknowledge that I am deserving of a life that is not 100% struggle. I will slow down to decipher when wisdom is speaking and when it's just my limiting beliefs. I hope this gave you a moment to reflect. If you journal or meditate, I would encourage you to ponder this question today. Is my wildest dream attached to wisdom and love, or is there any part of me that is attaching to it a limiting belief? Thank you so much for listening.